Students, good morning and welcome to the class. In our last video, we discussed how Fanny Price, a poor, miserable girl, arrives at Mansfield Park and she feels wretched among the Burton family. We discussed that Sir Thomas Burton procures a position in the Navy for Fanny's favorite brother, William. And Mr. Norris, Fanny's another uncle, dies after 5 years. Now, as Edmund is not old enough to take over his position as minister, the job is given to Mr. Grant at the parsonage. The widowed Mrs. Norris moves to a nearby house, and everyone expects that Fanny will now start living with her aunt, Mrs. Norris. Fanny is crestfallen at the thought of living with her miserly aunt, but Mrs. Norris convinces the Burtons to keep Fanny at Mansfield Park. Students, Sir Thomas's financial difficulties continue to worsen and he leaves for the Caribbean island of Antigua to oversee his plantation. He takes with him his son-in-law, Tom Burton, whose overspending is at the root of his troubles. The atmosphere at Mansfield Park becomes much more relaxed in the absence of the strict Sir Thomas. Fanny feels sad that he is gone. During his absence, Maria Burton becomes engaged to Mr. Rushworth, a wealthy but boring neighbor. In addition, Mrs. Grant's younger, wealthy half-brother Henry Crawford and his beautiful half-sister Mary Crawford arrive at the parsonage for an extended visit. While the Burton girl make social calls and attend balls, shy and miserable Fanny becomes Lady Burton's companion. Fanny's only joy in her life is her cousin Edmund, who insists that she should have a horse to ride for her health. The Burtons and Crawfords become fast friends. Although Mrs. Grant is intent on matching Henry with the single and available Julia Burton, he seems to prefer Julia's sister Maria Burton, who is engaged to the offish Mr. Rushworth. Mary warns them that her brother is the most horrible flirt that can be imagined. If your Miss Burtons do not like to have their hearts broke, let them avoid Henry. Although Mary Crawford is initially not attracted to Edmund, in time she becomes used to him. While Henry and Mary Crawford talk to Burtons, they admit that they are puzzled by Fanny Price's social position. Mary inquires whether Fanny is out in the society, and after many twists, turns and tails, she concludes that Fanny is indeed not out. Maria Burton's fiancé, Mr. Rushworth, has taken a keen interest in improving his estate, Southerton, through remodeling and landscaping, and the Burtons and Crawfords decide to visit Southerton in hopes of helping him decide what can be done. So students, in the opening chapters, we see that three ward sisters of Huntington marry men in different social categories, high, middle and low, fixes social mobility at Mansfield Park's primary themes. This is hardly surprising since Jane Austen utilizes this theme in many of her novels. Lady Burton's marriage to Sir Thomas illustrates that it is possible for a young woman to climb up the social ladder. Mrs. Norris, the second sister, marries slightly above her station and lives comfortably in the Mansfield Park parsonage. In contrast, Mrs. Price's marriage to a lowly sailor serves as a warning to young women about making rash decisions regarding marriage. Lady Burton sleeps most of the day and lets other raise her children. Mrs. Norris is nagging miserly, while Mrs. Price winds up with an unemployed drunken husband and is finally forced to reach out for help during her ninth pregnancy. Although it appears that Lady Bertram and Mrs. Norris want to help their sister by bringing Fanny to Mansfield Park, they are very careful to ensure that Fanny does not have the privileges accorded to the Bertram children. It seems that having made the social leap themselves, they will go to great lengths to keep the British class system in place. In their eyes, Fanny isn't good enough to climb the social ladder. Mansfield Park appears to critique the system of primogeniture, the firstborn son's right to inherit the entirety of their parents' estate. The younger sons were forced to do something for themselves and usually found positions in the army, navy, and law or the cavalry. Girls were viewed as financial assets only when they married to advantage. They became heiresses only when they had no brothers. As the oldest Bertram, Tom will become next Sir Thomas, while Edmund is slated for the clergy. The Bertram sister will be expected to marry within their own social strata. Austen uses the character of Tom Bertram to expound upon the problems inherent in this system. Tom's excessive spending causes his father great financial hardships, so much so that Sir Thomas himself must travel to Antigua to manage his investments instead of sending an agent. Sir Thomas cannot afford to hold the parsonage position open for Edmund, who has not yet been ordained a minister, and is forced to allow Mr. Grant to take the job. Clearly, Austen believes that this restrictive system is problematic for all the parties involved. Although the Antigua plantation does not seem important at first, it provides a great deal of income for the family, allowing them to live an aristocratic lifestyle. It should be remembered that the family's fancy silk and lace dresses, elaborate balls, ornate carriages, London houses, country mansions, servants by the dozens, chapels, lapdogs, china teacups, expensive furnishings, and pianofortes all are paid through the trade and transport of such commodities as sugar, coffee, and rum, all products of Caribbean islands such as Antigua. In short, it is the slave labor that pays for families' life of leisure, contemplation, good manners, and luxury. In addition, in this era, the financial worth and yearly incomes of people were common knowledge. Thus, Maria Ward, with only £7,000, is fortunate to marry Sir Thomas, and Mary Crawford, with £20,000 to her name, would indeed be an ideal financial match for Edmund, the poor second son. Many 18th century novels utilize the dichotomy between city and country life. In Mansfield Park, Austen uses the meeting between the country Bertrams and the city Crawfords to highlight the discrepancy between the two regions. The London Lady Mary is out of touch with the rural needs of the farmers. They must harvest their grain at any cost and become upset when Mary insists on using one of their wagons to transport her harp. She fails to understand that she cannot have her way if the farmers are to have enough food to last them the winter. Edmund is put off by Mary's selfish attitude, as is Fanny, but Edmund's attraction to Mary causes him to abandon his better judgment. Like Mary, Henry Crawford demonstrates an almost total ignorance of the realities of rural life. He is hired to an estate, but to attend to his properties and tenants. Simply put, the arrival of the Crawfords is intended to highlight the clash between the traditional values found at Mansfield Park and the new ways of London life. While the patriarch, Sir Thomas, leaves the young people in the inept hands of Lady Bertram and Mrs. Norris, they become infected by the city dwellers' loose morals. Students, this much for today. We will continue in our next class. Thank you very much.